Kia ora, this is Andy Hamilton, co-founder of Manaaki, and today it's not a Web3 talk, I've got a very special guest, the new CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, former politician, Simon Bridges. Welcome.
Kia ora, Andy, good to be with you.
This is cool.
Yeah, it is. Great. Can we call it a set? I know it's a real thing. Drums behind me, you never know. If this chat goes wrong, we'll get on there.
Are you comfortable if you got on the drums and then people could hear?
Yes, no, I like the drums. I mean, I'm far from my peak, but I do have an electronic drum kit. Once was good. Now it's sort of like the mind is, or maybe the spirit is willing, but the coordination is not quite as, like I don't have the technical prowess, you know. You got to sort of do, but if I did like 2 hours a day for like 2 weeks, I'd probably be back in. But I can hold a beat.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
What do the kids do when you go to the drums?
They try and get involved, which annoys me, if I'm honest. And that's it. I keep saying, look, I'll either teach you or get you lessons. We live not that far actually from K Road Rock Shop, where they do lessons now. Not they do, but the Rock Shop has lessons. So at some point in time, but they're 10 and 8 and 4. 4-year-olds definitely too young. The 10 and 8-year-old marginal. I think the best stage is about 12.
It is a gift though, the gift of music, right? When you think about like,
and in rhythm, and I don't want to sound immodest, but I was never going to be an All Black. I was never going to play any kind of contact or team sport because I'm hopeless. But I have certain very rare I have 2 or 3 things I know I'm quite good at. I am quite good at rhythm and music,
dancing.
And look, I am 46. I wouldn't say I'm, you know, but that's one sort of small thing, that kind of rhythmic kind of that I'm all right at.
Do you listen to music?
Yeah, a lot. Although, yeah, I do a lot. Although I feel like I'm stuck in a rut. I cannot.
Not with like Taylor Swift.
No, well, I haven't listened to that.
Have you not listened to the new album? It's
trending or something. I don't even. That controversy has just passed me by. I quite like Taylor Swift.
I love Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I think she's, you know, and she's been clever the way she's gone from all that hokey country nonsense that some people like.
I love country.
See, I don't. But she's gone from that, and she's mainstream. And she's a very talented singer-songwriter, and all the rest.
Simon Bridges, politician?
Yes.
Simon Bridges now. How do you describe yourself when you meet someone who doesn't know who the fuck you are, right?
Yeah.
Who's probably been in a rabbit hole?
Yeah.
What do you say?
I don't know. I kind of say I suppose now I'm a CEO.
Wow.
Of an NGO or a business association is a main thing, but I'm kind of and that is my main, and you know, that is my focus for sort of several hours a day. But I've got a few other bits and pieces going on. I'm a dad. I'm a podcaster. I'm a columnist. I'm a book board director now. And a couple of things. So there's a bit. I'm busy.
So let's go. So you're CEO of the Chamber of Commerce.
And that is, and just to any board members listening, that's my main gig, right? That's what I do most of the time, okay? That's where I devote my energy and my
From
best
7
time.
till 9.
Something like that.
No, all day. So that's your CEO, and the Chamber of Commerce Auckland, or
Yes.
Auckland Chamber of Commerce
Yes.
is from Taupo North, right? Up to the top.
No, you've got these other, and the Chambers movement is very strong regionally, right? So you've got Tauranga, you've got Waikato, you've got some little ones like I think Morrinsville and da-da-da.
Yeah.
What is true though is Auckland is the one with the scale.
Yeah.
So what that means is we have a stewardship role, and we do things like if we've got an ICT change, we're changing our systems, we will seek to try and give that benefit to the other chambers.
And we're going to come back to the chamber. So what other stuff? So you said podcast.
I got
host.
my stuff podcast.
Yeah.
Look, I love that. Again, in case board members are listening, I don't want to say that that's my favourite thing, but it's kind of one of my favourite things. Really enjoy that. I mean, it's not massive prep, although I take it seriously. And on average, once a week, I'm in it stuff not too far from here in Ponsonby, and I am recording that. It's called Generally Famous. What I like about that is it's I suppose it combines fun and meaning. You know, I'm trying to get some meaning out of life and meaning out of that, and so that's a good sort of roughly hour of.
How do you choose who to interview?
I'm lazy, I must be honest, and mostly it's them choosing. I've given them a list of names every so often, right? Because I want to make sure it's a truly diverse range of people. It's not all kind of this or that, and so you know, if I look at it and it's been perhaps too many of this, I'm not going to give examples. I say, you know what? How about we try and find a really wealthy startup guy, or because that's a demographic, and they've got interesting. I hate the word learnings; it's not a real word, but learnings as well.
Have you ever interviewed Brooke, the co-founder of Sharesies?
Yes.
You have?
Yes, I think so.
How many have you done?
Was she Brooke? I think it was Brooke.
Yeah.
There's 2 or 3. Yeah, and look, she was great. And,
how many have you done so far?
We've done 10, and we had a season, and we've got a new one coming up. And look, we have, without giving away tree, we've got a sexologist, we've got, you know, sports people, we've got, we've got you know, one of New Zealand's wealthiest people. So. And I like that. Generally famous, the idea, look, the pitch from me was, let's do this, it's going to be the generally famous, but always really interesting, right? So if they're sort of well known, but the ones that go the best, the ones where people give something of themselves, right? There's something a bit, I don't want to say different, but you know, you feel like they're really engaging. Actually, the other thing that's important, I think, is ones where they've got a really, and it's great if they disagree with me, but where they've got a really clear kind of worldview. They get up in the morning with passion. They've got something that really they feel strongly about. That to me,
that's intoxicating.
It is, and getting that on a podcast, to use your word, is intoxicating.
It's amazing, actually. And my assumption is when you do those interviews, it's those moments when someone says something that you go all in on that and creates that opportunity for the interesting.
Correct. I mean, at one level, someone said to me, "Oh, you quite like your podcast. You kind of like Marcus Flush. You just kind of pick up on what they're saying, and that's good, right?" And that's actually at a level, I'm glad they think that. That's not true. I'm quite anal, right? I have a script. I've got the few things, and I've got a sort of an arc of where I'm trying to go. But of course. You're wanting to have a genuine conversation, and if Jimmy takes you on a journey over here, that's really important, and you feel like, you know, there's meaning in that, helps us understand something. That's great. I mean, we had Ganesh Raj, who's, you know, on TV, on chef and and somehow we got onto, and I thought it was some of the best moments, right? On the podcast around his daily routine and hypnosis and some of the things he has done to kind of get himself in a strong mental shape, right?
It's an interesting question.
I found that really interesting.
How do you get in flow?
I suppose, this is a terrible answer, like I should have thought. I suppose
we can't edit this.
I think I'm a routine guy. I am fairly if I feel like, and I'm a morning guy. I like.
What time do you get up?
I like waking up. Well, I'm not going to pretend to you I'm up at sort of 4 a.m. and, you know, 4 till 5:30 is my best. That's not true at the moment. But I do, if I sort of am up 5:36 and I've got a couple of hours there, they will be my best hours in the day. And maybe it's some reading, maybe it's reflecting on a few things, maybe it's important work where I need to exercise, another buzzword. I said buzzwords I hate, but thought leadership.
Oh, I thought you were going to say exercise like running or yoga.
As you can tell, there should be more of that going on. I did go for a swim, some laps yesterday.
You did?
But those early mornings, I think, are something that's important to me. And, you know, I think, aren't we all, different people want different things. I don't want a boring life. I want a full, interesting life. To me, that means taking some risks. It means thinking things through. I'm a bit of a contrarian, you know. I like to take different view to other people, to my cost sometimes. But early mornings.
Okay, so podcast,
write an MBR column. People wonder why the MBR. Probably got a massive reach or anything. But look, I just wanted. I like writing. I wrote a book. I found I enjoy columns. It's a way of kind of this is what I think about something, and hopefully a bit more thoughtful than that.
Do you write those articles?
Yes.
And then go back and shave them, or do you just write it and go, it's done?
Fundamentally, it's more in that latter category. Although my wife Natalie, who's been a journalist in PR, I do get her to read them and see, have a slight madness test.
Does
is
she
there
ever
anything
go,
there?
what were you thinking?
Occasionally. Generally,
and how do you take that feedback?
Well, I'm getting worried because at the moment it's just like, yep, great. And it's kind of like
she's not reading them.
It's a bit pro forma, right? And I'm sort of like, well, was it? And I'm fishing for compliments, of course. Well, is it the best thing you've ever read? No, Saturday mornings, once a fortnight, oftentimes it'll be something, and they can be a bit, oftentimes it'll be something I've been thinking about. Maybe it's the Chinese economy, maybe it's what's happening in the Ukraine, But what I like about the MBR is I don't feel pressure as I would for one of the bigger outfits of saying, I have to write something that's newsy and that's going to have some gotcha and clickbait and that they'll be able to get their value on. No, with the MBR, I'm writing for me, what I think's kind of significant. Hopefully they're a bit evergreen, if you know what I mean. There's stuff that, actually will stand the test of time. I'm talking about the issues around Europe and the Ukraine. I'm talking about New Zealand vis-a-vis China and what that means for us over maybe a medium-term kind of perspective. So, world according to Simon, hopefully researched and thought out. I mean, that's part of my regime early morning, right? I'm reading the online news, I'm reading some international stuff to kind of get a perspective of what is going on and shape me and what I'm, and to me that's sort of thinking like that, that's fun.
So you're taking inputs from what you can see around the world and in New Zealand. You're not looking at likes, tweets that mention Simon Bridges.
I fundamentally don't look at any social media. Don't get me wrong, I do maybe once a week. It's an important tool for me to use. I'm sorry to sound so selfish, but it's not an important form of information flow or kind of reaffirmation to me. I like things in writing. I'm old school like that.
Do you print do you print stuff out?
Sometimes I do, but no, I read online. But what I mean to you is I don't actually listen to a lot of radio. I don't watch much TV. But what I do every morning when I wake up is I look kind of at stuff, the Herald, actually the MBR, because I've got a free subscription, and then I'll go to kind of 2 or 3 round the world, FT, Wall Street Journal and the AFR from Australia, and that's kind of me. And then I don't think about the news again, because to me what that allows me to see what's significant, not the just kind of gotcha nonsense that Taylor Swift has done a fart, or someone's been mean to J-Lo, or what Mike Hosking reckons. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
You don't listen to
I did this morning actually for several minutes because my wife does, and look, often I agree with him, but no, because to me, that stuff is the day-to-day, and I want to get beyond that to what's kind of actually a trend and significant. And maybe I'm a bit elitist in that regard, but now I'm out of politics, I'm allowed to be.
Yeah,
and I suppose it's politics, you're having to watch it, you've got to see what Jessica Mutch reckons and Tova O'Brien reckons and everyone else. I'm out of that. It's tiring. I don't need to do that. I look at what I think is significant. And I feel like, and the other thing is I do have a bias towards international, because it seems to me we're so small, and I don't want to say insignificant. We're not insignificant, because small things can be really significant, but we're so small that we need to be outward looking. We need to be, and oftentimes what happens in the US, and you know this from what happens in the US or in Israel or wherever it is, oftentimes those big secular trends, they come to New Zealand anyway. So if you want to see what's the future, you'll often look out.
Post lockdown, have you got out of Dodge, out of New Zealand on a holiday or work trip?
Once, only once. I mean, there is some talk of going to New York after Christmas
with your children.
In-laws. No, without them.
You're going to leave them behind.
Well, I have these wonderful. I hope they watch this. The wonderful in-laws in the UK. They're coming for like 6 months or something very soon. And the deal is, I keep saying to my wife, that's cool. Let's get what your sister gets over in the UK, which is the ability to go to somewhere like New York for a week or so. I don't know whether it's New York or whether it's actually just Sydney, because we haven't been there in a while. We went to the UK for exactly a month in kind of end of June to end of July before I started as CEO of the Chamber. Amazing. And again, it gives you that perspective,
It does.
right? The world had moved on. You know, as soon as you get off out of international, no one's got a mask. They're kind of just, they've got the same issues, you know, around staff shortages and economic and inflation and so on. But fundamentally, it seems to me it was, despite what you read in the news at the moment, it was quite upbeat. Everyone was just getting back into stuff. And that was very liberating coming from New Zealand, where we'd been a bit, shall we say, earnest for a while.
Which is an important aspect for you as the leader of the chamber, for the voice of business in your community, to be able to share that, because people get stuck in a rut, right?
I agree with that. And I think, and it's true, and let me defend politicians at a level as well. You know, some people...
You've been very nice this morning.
I'm a nice guy, sometimes. Some people are really mean about politicians going on junkets, as they call them, or indeed, you know, probably business heads and so on. I think there is something, you know, not every week. You've got to do your day job, and actually I like that. You know, I've got a tendency sometimes to be a bit stuck here because people need me, and I've got these things going on. But it is good just to lift your sights every so often, go to Silicon Valley or go to Europe or go to India for that matter and see what's happening and the dynamism in Australia, and just say, and then that allows you to reflect on the comparison. There's good columns in that too.
There is.
There's always a good. I think I did a UK kind of. You know, moving on from COVID column a few months back. You know, that's what you get when you go overseas.
Well, you get the opportunity for those patterns. Anything else? Boards? Are you on any boards?
Yeah, so that column, I'm on a couple of boards. One is, you would say, is a non-government advisory board for the National Road Carriers.
Yep.
Look, I took that because at a level, it's a sister organisation with the Chamber. It's very strong in the Upper North Island around freight. And, you know, I hope I can give something back as a Transport Minister who knows a bit about some of these things, but and is helping a new CEO. There's a great guy as he leads that organisation. But what's also true is it's selfishly very good for me. I get a sense of what's happening in freight in New Zealand, and you know, there's many proxies for what's going on in the economy, but getting a good sense of freight and their issues gives you a real sense of what's happening in the real economy. And the other one is a significant company or group of companies called the CC Group. They're in a bunch of franchises that are on the shore.
C?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. CCs are tasting like these. No, it's got nothing to do with that. I've never said that before.
And you can start a board meeting. CCs
and I'm the
tasting like these.
Exactly. I'm the independent chair of that. It's their inaugural board. They've got to a quite significant size and turnover from a great founder. And you know, they're now seeking to, you know, put in place some of the robust systems and checks and scrutiny that comes with having a board. And you know, what's really interesting about that is you've got this board of several people, and you know, the obligatory bean counter who's fantastic, and you know, a very senior business person, again with a very significant business. And then you got me, right, former politician and da-da-da-da, but we all bring something, and there is a good diversity of thought that we can already see very early on as providing a lot of help to the founder in taking their business from kind of here to here, and then to kind of, you know, we think in time here.
Are you relational or transactional as a human?
I hope I'm becoming more relational, which answers your question. I think I have been quite transparent. I'm a guy who's very outcomes focused, right? And I recognise that that's both a strength and a weakness. Yeah. So I sit there, you know, in the chamber, I get impatient. I'm on a journey, I want to do 7 things, I want to do them by lunchtime, or if not lunchtime, by the end of the year or by the middle of next year, right? But sometimes, you know, you just have to be a bit more patient than that. For a lot of very valid reasons, people kind of want to move a bit slower, or they want to understand you, and they only want to kind of help you and be on your journey when they know you care about their journey. And so I think over the last 4 or 5 years, I've got better at being a more relational person. I don't want to. I'm hamming up at a level. I'm not suggesting I'm terrible, but I think
is that as a result of what you've experienced, or is it feedback?
I think it's all of that. I think, I mean, and maybe it's age and at some qualified level of maturity,
Wisdom.
Young guy in a hurry. I'm 46 today, and I'm certainly in myself very comfortable in myself and very comfortable where I'm at and enjoying the various things that are going on, and including a young family and
do they give you shit
and do stuff. Yeah,
or not
my
yet?
wife does.
Mine are 16 and 18.
Oh,
and I was buying some stuff with the daughter at Lululemon yesterday, which is a whole other experience. I sat in the car, and she's like, "Can you come in and select for me?" And before I knew it, I'd already bought a pair of pants, and I was like, "This is not about me." But anyway, I swore, and as we left, she goes to me, "Dad, please don't swear in front of someone else."
She got you. I'd like to think, I'm probably completely wrong on this, but I'd like to think at some level my kids who are 10, 8 and 4 are still slightly in hero worship mode, right? I know this is going to go sometime in the next couple of years,
I don't think so.
but I still think they like, Dad, he knows about blah and he can be helpful with this. There's a really big, and it's a matter of kind of copious Women's Weekly articles and so on, but it's a matter of record that the big factor for me getting out of politics was just clear sense that I could have gone and done another decade and tricked myself into thinking that really mattered to lots of people when possibly it sort of didn't, and know that my children wouldn't got the best of me. So very
Which
busy.
is a beautiful thing, right?
It is, and even though I'm
you
busy,
can be home tonight.
Even though I'm busy, look, there's no question I have a lot more time. And the big simple differences, and in politics, and I don't envy these guys, whether it's Jacinda Ardern or Chris Luxon or anyone else, they're away every day, whereas now it would be the exception to the rule that I'm away. There's still a bit of evening stuff, we do a lot of events, business excellence awards and all these sort of things in the chamber. Fundamentally, I'm home every night. I'm reading them C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe at the moment.
That's cool.
To varying success. Well, I just remember my mum reading it to me. I've still got the one she read me. It's got these kind of cool little pictures that I kind of nostalgically love. We're at chapter 3.
Have we missed anything else on what you do these days?
I think, so it's a bit of the corporate stuff. My main gig is a little bit of that media stuff. And then, I don't know, what else is going on? No, I think they're the main ones, yeah.
Celebrity Treasure Island?
Never. No, please.
Never?
No.
You said never?
Well, I did do Masked Singer, right? So, but again, I thought about it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a great singer, but in the small subset of things I can do, I think a big key to success is just knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. I'm not good at this much. I'm kind of good at this much, right? So I can kind of hold a beat. I can kind of hold a tune. So we did Masked Singer. That sounded a bit royal. I did Masked Singer, and but Dance with the Stars, I've said no now, I think twice to that.
They won't come
just
back
because
again, but that's
I know that it's like that's humiliation factor, right? And Treasure Island, I can't see it. No.
How do you, as a receptacle for voice with the Chamber and the Chamber of Commerce, how do you take the soundings of people so you know what to focus on? Because as a politician, you're getting these feeds and you're getting these papers and you're forming views in your portfolios. I suspect it might be similar in the chamber, but and how do you ensure that the voice of not just big business who have all the lobbyists versus small business that comes to the fore? Because you have a very important role to speak for small business.
And I think something Michael Barnett, the former CEO, did incredibly well, and I sort of believe and hope I'm continuing, is we see ourselves as really speaking for SMEs, small, medium businesses, better than anyone, right? There's other business associations that do a lot of other stuff better than us, probably, but I think on this one thing, we have an authority, we see it in our membership. And so your point's a good one, right? How do you do it? And it's a hard sort of a question to answer at a level, because I think you've just got to do lots of things. I'd give you a couple of things though. One is actually the functions, lots of stuff. and making sure you're not, it's same as true in politics, right? Danger for Prime Minister is just to listen to these three people, right? Actually, I think John Key had a real strength that was getting out, listening to lots of people, right? So then you'd sort of see him move on something. It was because, when he heard 7 people from different groups selling, he did that. So getting out, listening a lot, forcing yourself into small businesses. Not that it's a great, a hard thing to do.
So you got to visit small businesses?
Absolutely. And make sure, email in today, an SME out in Botany. They want me to come and look at some things. Look, I will do that because, it will be good for them, I hope, but even more, it'll be good for me. So that real stuff. And then what's also true is, and when you know that both of them are saying the same things, you're onto something, is our surveys, actually looking at a bunch of the, significant surveys that others are doing, whether it's 2 degrees or MYOB or Zero or a bunch of others. Because even though, you'd say about our surveys, and we do these surveys about once a month, they're not statistically 100% accurate, but when you've got X thousand people coming in, they the first 500 and the last 2,000 will be saying the same thing, right? And you can see if they're telling you these are our 3 issues, these are what we think's going well, you're on something, and if that's what Jenny and John and Hammy and everyone else have said to you when you've been out there, that gives you a clear sense of purpose and an authority that you're on the right track.
What are they saying to you now?
Pretty simple.
Yep.
Actually, but like at one level, very simple. And let's be clear that there's this difference between sentiment and reality sometimes, right? Okay. So they're not necessarily identical, although they're both important. The sentiment from SME is pretty clear. Workers, can't get them, need them, massive constraint on them, big problems. At a secondary level, like that's the main one, but a secondary level, the other big thing that's out there is just as we all experience inflation, cost, the pressure on that, what that means for profitability, the debt profile, all these things. So these are the big things. What I try and do is balance that with, I think, some objective stuff there. So, by the way, they are objective and real. That's a sentiment and that's also reality. But what's also true is that, there are some signs of spring. Yep, the world's got a bunch of problems, but in New Zealand, we're relatively well placed. And so I'm constantly trying to make sure, and it's again something that Michael Barnett, I think, was good at, that we are, and I am, acknowledging and being clear to government and media about the real problems that need fixing and what some of the solutions should be there, but also a sense of hope and optimism and as I say, solutions. So it's getting that balance right.
Are we sentiment in a recession? Not reality.
Are we putting ourselves? I see it right now.
Yeah, and or.
I wouldn't go that far, but we could talk ourselves into it. My view is this: if it was just New Zealand, right? I don't know that we will get to recession, right? Massive caveat on that though, like massive one, and that's like the rest of the world, right? And because there are big world problems, there's all the Federal Reserve stuff and inflation generally, what that means. There's Ukraine, and I don't mean to be dramatic, but some often say a 1 in 5 chance of nuclear problems, and all of what it means for Europe in terms of energy and economic crisis. There's China, which is going through real issues economically, around its property and restrictive lockdowns, not to mention authoritarian regime there. I could go on and on. All that stuff means the world could go into recession and that could affect us. I think what I would safely say is wherever it sort of goes, I come back, I sort of still think, and I'm not just saying this to be positive for the sake of it, I think it's a reasonably objective position I've come to, which is that you'd still say New Zealand's pretty well placed. Australia's very well placed. We do food, the world will continue to need it. The high value tourist stuff is for real and it's a bit slow, but it is fundamentally coming back, particularly in North America. I don't see that changing. So I sit there and say, on the whole, forget politics, feel this, New Zealand's relatively well placed.
So
and businesses are still making money.
Yeah, they are. So, so my local cafe where I live in St John's, Beanie, my mates who run Dante's Pizzeria, best pizza ever.
What's it called?
Dante's.
Good, right.
You can get it in Takapuna, Ponsonby Central,
Fantastic.
Eastridge. One of those areas,
Fantastic.
I'm sure you, but also Patagonia Chocolates down in Queenstown.
Yes.
Friends of mine. If I look at across all those three businesses, they're closed at certain times of the day or week.
Yes.
And they're probably 20 to 30% constrained on their ability to earn income because they can't get the staff, right? So my question as a former politician, when that's endemic in small business, which is, you know, as well as rising costs, how do they get that message to people like you to get the politicians to listen?
Oh, they get it pretty clearly. I mean, it's like, if I wanted to be simplistic, but at a level accurate, the big issue, the only issue, is that worker stuff, right? Yeah. And the policy response to that is quite clearly immigration, right? I met with the PM very recently, senior opposition politicians and so on. Like they're hearing it, right? At one level, they're absolutely hearing it. I mean, I'm slipping into political mode, so just shot me. Just zip my lips up if
we
it
just cut it.
We cut it. But I kind of look at it and I say, I get at a level where Jacinda Ardern and so coming from. They want to see Kiwis employed first. They want to see upskilling. They want to see higher wages. I would just sort of say then there's reality, right? And the problem with the immigration stuff is in the end, it's not about being better, because what the government can say is, we've tweaked the settings today and then we'll do it again next week and getting better. No, it's not about being better. It's, are you as good or better than your competition, which by the way is Aussie.
Totally.
And we're not. And so what that means is, unfortunately, we are seeing net, outflows to Australia, and that's a real issue for us. And you just think about your sentiment around recession. If you're that Patagonia Chocolates or your other ones, and they're doing whatever you say, 25-30% kind of closing, they're having to ration their business. Well, shit, it doesn't feel very good for them, does it? Even if they're still kind of making money.
Alex, he sits there, one of the co-owners with Lorena, and what he says to me is, messaging him, and he'll go, I said, how's it going? Like, there's many Australians. And he said, mate, there's more Australians than we've ever had. It's incredible. But he said, what kills me is I can't, I've got people hanging out the queues out the door. I can't get their money because I can't get the staff, and I'm working 10 hours a day. And guess what? I think the small business owners are unbelievably resilient.
Yes.
They just handle it.
Yes.
But, and the challenge with any government policy is that the lag happens after it's happened. Like, do you know that?
Yes.
And that's like how you flip that speed. I don't think we ever will, because government reacts. Yes. I was with Treasury on Friday, and it's like the government is reactive after the fact. And I was like trying to say to them, how do you be proactive? You have to form a hypothesis that there's a micro issues or series of issues and act on it. But be proactive, not reactive.
Absolutely. And look, what is a real concern about this is, just take tourism in Queenstown, all that. Like, I've said to you just before, look, it's coming back. The story around North American seems very real. They're coming in, they spend lots, wonderful. But we've got to be really careful if they get a bad service, or they just say, Sally, I'm going back to New York, where, I don't have to wait for the freaking chocolates, and they've got these lines that are sort of really long, and they start saying that, and maybe there's 3 or 4 stories in the international media about how, New Zealand's service is not kind of as good as it could be. That could have a real effect, right? And so these are really important issues. Not to suggest, it's kind of happening everywhere, but we all point that lag has been for real in New Zealand.
As a lawyer, are you risk avoiding or risk loving? Sorry, with a history.
No, yes, I've had a history of that, but politics shook that out of me. I'm probably never take this clip out of context, right? But I probably am a risk taker.
Like it.
I've probably learned to be, I'm all about the calculation, right? I think if it's rational and you've done your due diligence and you sit there and you've worked out your pros and your cons relatively objectively, and, go for it.
Does the Chamber have a lawyer? Legal firm?
Yes, but what we also have is, and we haven't had to use them since I've been there, by the way. And he said,
"Do you draft your own agreements?"
No, because I'm a bush. No, because I'm I'm in the dangerous category now, right? Because like it's been so long, but I still think I know. I've got a master's in law, don't you know? But it's been so long that I'm bush lawyer and dangerous.
What was your thesis
I
on?
wouldn't. Originally, it was in a sort of public law kind of staff that was at Auckland, and then at Oxford, you basically have 4 specialisations, and I did a bit of criminology, which has been no use to anyone. I did a bit of constitutional law, which has been no use to anyone, and I did a bit of what else did I? I did some evidence and civil procedure stuff because that was kind of relevant to me at that point.
It is an interesting thing, though, right? Because like
Edit that. That was boring. Sorry.
I was a lawyer as well,
Yes.
right? And,
how long?
3 years at Russell McVeigh. But the thing
Good training though.
Yeah, amazing training, amazing actually. And interesting. My reflection is, I think if I'd started in a small firm, I might still have been in the law. But I started at a big firm, amazing firm, amazing experience. But I just had this desire to get in the business. But here's my interesting thing: when I see legal agreements or commercial partnerships, I'm very comfortable. But I often think about the small businesses who don't have access to that, and how they overcome those barriers. And I suppose that's where support organisations like the Chamber, like EMA, like Pacific Business Trust and others is important, because it takes away that barrier of concern, because a legal agreement is only just a collection of words, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's right. I started, not Russell, but I started Denton's Kensington Swan, as it's called now. That was great. But I did what you're suggesting. I then went to a smaller firm because I wanted to do criminal jury trials and like on the TV, and that probably kept me in law longer as a result of that. But I think, look, we've all got our different experience. You don't know what you don't know. I mean, until relatively recently, I was never particularly strong around balance sheets and profit and loss and so on. I think I've now got reasonable facility on that, but because my background's in law, it's contract, I know this.
Well, it's an interesting question, right? So how you...
It's kind of, and the danger is like, I know what this clause says before I've read it, so that's the danger.
As the chair
familiarity
of that family business, have you been chair before? You've been chair of reviews and things, but have you been chair of a company?
No, I haven't. I think what I would say is, if I was sitting there on that board and I didn't have 3 or 4 really seasoned business people who run SMEs to big businesses, like one of them's now big in Australia and New Zealand, I don't know, it'd be circa 150 million turnover or something. If it was just me sitting there saying, we just need to do this, I would have reservations. But I think there is a strength in the group. And what I bring, because I try not to be either arrogant but neither falsely humble about it, I think what I bring is a relatively unique set of governance skills. I mean, number one, I can facilitate the thing very well. Number two, I think, the kind of business this is in, understanding sort of government contracts and the landscape there and where things are going and some of the opportunities and risks. I probably bring some skill and experience in some of that stuff that no one else on the board quite has. So, it's a blending of all of that stuff.
Have you gone to other chairs and said, how do you do, like, just the organisation of meetings and agendas and, have you gone to others and said, how do you do that?
Yes, and it's been really helpful. But again, I sort of, this is, I don't want to be far from me give advice to kind of others, but I think, what happens over time, of course, you do pick up a lot from osmosis, and for the variety of bits and pieces I've been on, even learning a lot. The Chamber board, right? We've got some amazing guys. We've got Peter Thompson and Buffett and Thompson. Yep. We've got Fred Hallaby Meats. These are big companies. We've got Chris Carr, Karen Haslam. Centuries. We're certainly a 100-something-year-old large trucking company. We've got I've got other partners and firms and so on. So I think over time, just like cabinet in a way, you come in, no one's trained you.
Yeah.
Same with company boards. You kind of get to see, I like what she's done. I like what he's done. Not so sure about that, and you're picking up the best of people. I hope I've done that.
And you're curious, right? And energetic.
Yeah. And you're not saying this, but I suppose they cover a multitude of sins.
Yeah, they do. What's positive energy for you?
Not in what I would do?
No, positive energy. When you're around, so sometimes I ask people what's negative energy, you know, and what's positive energy. But I don't want to talk about negative energy. But for you, what gives you a positive vibe?
I think it's people who you can just tell are, you know, maybe in completely different wavelength, but they're genuinely engaged. I mean, they're not being twee, but like us right now.
Yeah.
You know, I was at an awards ceremony for the Westpac Business Awards recently. We had Kate Roger, you know, Kate Roger's TV3 movie, and she was, I don't know, it seemed relevant at the time. She was talking about Tom Cruise, right, and how there's a guy, and you see it with really top politicians as well. I mean, people would say this about Bill Clinton. When you're with them, they're right on you. It's all about you, and I don't know if that for Tom Cruise is a Scientology or what it is, right? But
great movie, Maverick. Have you seen it?
Absolutely. Well, and like biggest movie and like we keep saying we're going to take our oldest, but we haven't. But they would love it, right? But the problem is then they'd want to be an aircraft fighter pilot, and we'd have to deal with that for the next, which would be fine. Yeah, totally. But I think that is genuine positive energy when someone's with you. They're picking up what you're putting down, even if they agree or not. And for me, bit of self-declaration, I have already sort of basically said I'm a weirdo. I do get a lot of positive energy from, you know, just reading something that's really interesting and thoughtful and helps me think about. So I'm a reflector, right? I'm somewhat, not in a ridiculous way, I'm somewhat introverted, and so, you know, which just means that I draw energy from kind of time, like, you know, I've told you about that 6 to 8 a.m. kind of, and so that sort of reading something that's really good, that gives me a lot of positive energy. That might fuel me for a day or a week, you know, if I really read something and say, oh, that's really changed the way I think about something.
So having said I wasn't going to ask it, I am now. What about negative energy? You know, what occurs to me is, and I might, you know, go off and kick myself and have a better answer for you, but I think what occurs to me right now is what I get pissed off with is people who don't give a shit, who just are dispassionate, you know, that they're not prepared to kind of not even go the extra mile, but, you know, like, you know, I think, just that. What concerns me about New Zealand oftentimes is just a sense that we can be quite apathetic, quite complacent as a people, and that's a gross generalisation because there's plenty of amazing people, but, you know, I want to see a bit of interest, fire in your belly. You know what, I give a shit about that thing. You know, I'm a business person and there's these issues over here, and they may not affect me personally directly, but I'm motivated to help you do something about them because they really matter. You know, I like to think that's the kind of person I am, and I want to see that in others, and when I don't, that's negative energy. That disappoints me. You know, people who are in a position they could do something about something that matters. They agree it matters, but they're kind of like, nah, I don't know. We'll wait till someone else does. It's pretty interesting. Now, the chamber, right? Remarkable legacy, like remarkable from a, you know, like a career of Michael that creates, by the way, you know, I'm a true believer that our future is marked by the footprints that our forefathers have done, right? Because it gives us instruction around where we can go in the future. And so with all of that power and credibility that you have, there will be new things that you can and should do in the future as well, right? And for many of us who've had a career of 20 years, one of the things that's key is letting go and also giving room to new people to come in to create and paint new brushes. You know, what excites you about the opportunity the Chamber has to deliver a meaningful outcome for New Zealand that's not just the same, but is built on the legacy that Michael and his team have created?
I think that's a great point. I mean, I think it's like all these things is necessarily iterative, right? It's not like you suddenly go, oh, we've been over here, so we're just going over there, right? Just because it's different and we're going to have to go. No. The Chamber is in a very strong position fundamentally, and that's a real, as you say, privilege for me to come into that. But of course, I want to slightly change things up because we want to add value. I think that's evolution or something is in our DNA of what we do. And Michael has said in his last letter to the board as CEO, you know, the power of the Chamber has been its ability to reinvent and sort of go where, you know, there's gaps and where there needs to be. So I am thinking about those gaps. What I'd say to you about the Chamber is it's That's an octopus, right? It's got all these tentacles. It would blow your mind, I think, actually, if you, and I'll give you a couple of examples, but I can give you 15, I promise you. Of things that we do, you'll be like, what? I can't believe, why are you doing that? But it's through history and that we do these things. We run the Santa Parade. Right, we chair the Santa Parade, so that's coming up soon, depending on when we play this, and that is that is something we do. We are the biggest driving instructors by the numbers in New Zealand.
Driving instructors.
Exactly.
No.
And that's because
you make money from that?
Yes, and then that's we're doing good by doing well, or whatever it is.
That's important. You've always said, even when you came to me at the Ice House, you said, "What's your business model? How do you actually make money?" Rather than rely on government.
Yeah, and so we do that, and that's been about getting people work ready and so on. Now, and then there's a bunch of other things as well. As I say, we do all manner of stuff. At its heart, though, the chamber, it seems to me, and the members is a membership organisation that's about value and voice for those members around Auckland business. And I say that there's two things there. Auckland business, SMEs at the heart of that, but also Auckland. And so I sort of sit there and say, if Auckland's got an issue, Tamaki Makoto's got an issue, and it's relevant to business, and mostly they are, whether it's safety in the CBD, whether it's, how our tech sector's going, what we can do to make sure Tamaki Makaurau is the #1 hub for tech, in New Zealand, maybe even further afield than that. We've got a legitimate voice and leadership role to play in that. Whether it's infrastructure, whether it's, Auckland as a destination. And so I've just listed a few things there which I'm really keen to move into. We've been in them at some level. We've always had an interest in transport and infrastructure, and I've got a background in that. I find it interesting. Not everyone does, but I do. But and so I want to do some more on that. The tech sector stuff I talked to you about off air. We've got an interest in that. I think it's so important, in terms of a more highly productive, exciting, dynamic city and country, actually. So,
and diversity is important,
of course, and that's literally the next thing. The school chat will chat off it, but 2 new working groups. I hate that, and I hate that I've just done that on air as well. Like my mother does that. It's like, never do that. Never put things in inverted quotes.
I can't see you in question time going like this.
Jacinda. Trevor Mallard. I lost my train here. Is the tech
working
work
groups.
And the other one that I've just set up, and it's not an amazing title, but we will give it a better title than this, and we have a meeting coming up this month, is a Auckland Asian Business Advisory Board, right? Because it just seems to me that's such a dynamic, important part of business already in Auckland. You have to be living under a rock not to see that. It's only going to grow in importance. Whether it's the Indian community, whether it's the Chinese community, or a bunch of others, and there's some very exciting stories there. And so, at a level, yes, that's about doing the right thing in terms of diversity, but it's actually more than that. It's about doing the pragmatic reality thing about what business looks like, and will continue to.
I love it. And so we have 2 traditions which I always end up our talks with. One is, which comes from the Web3 world, which is every person on this show has to tell us a secret. Right? And we call it an alpha, right? You have to tell us a secret, right? So that's one. And the second is about taking yourself back to the 15-year-old version of you at your local school in Auckland, because you came from Auckland, and sharing some advice to them, knowing that your eldest is 10 now. So let's deal with the alpha. Have you got a secret that you can share?
I've got one that's just come to mind. We at the moment live in the top of an apartment block, right? Amazing, love it. Amazing views. Yeah, exactly. Not too far from sort of CBD fringe, and these amazing views, and feel great privilege being there, and Well, I keep saying I've never done that in an interview before. I don't know where that's come from. That's just me being lazy and not having something else to say to you. Anyway,
your mother will tell you off.
She will. We have a balcony. Large balcony with glass.
I'm worried
thing.
About what you're.
I'm really scared of heights. I mean, my father was. I don't know where it's. I mean, we're all a little bit scared because I think it's something biological in us that we don't want to, fall down and die, obviously. But I'm really nervy about this. So I love being there. I don't regret buying the place, but fundamentally, I can't go out on my balcony because I'm sort of scared of it. I don't know. I just. I don't know. And so I'm really weird about my kids going out there, and I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe going back to Ganesh Raj, maybe I need a little hypnosis or something.
You could do that. I remember.
But then I might be too cocksure, right? I might be out there saying, I'm gonna be leaning on this bit of glass here.
I remember 92 being in Paris and going up the Arc de Triomphe.
Right.
I couldn't get near the edge.
Like, don't get me wrong, I could do I remember my father. We used to go on these bushwalks, when we were young, and he wouldn't come. And there were many reasons why my father wouldn't go on them. He's a slightly flawed individual, but read my book. But and we'd be up around the cliff around sort of Waihi Beach over to I forget what the next one is, and you're sort of there, and it's sort of cliff edge and da-da-da. And I never had an issue with that and da-da-da, but he wouldn't go. Right, he just wouldn't do it. He was scared of the heights, right? He was a nervy guy, right? It's just no way this guy was. But something's happened to me, and I've become more nervy about these things. We're all just becoming our parents, right?
Do you lock the doors at night?
Yes.
To make sure no one goes.
Well, we've got to roll. We've got to roll. The kids aren't allowed out there without mum or dad. So,
that's a control thesis that's going to be broken.
Well, I'm sorry, but we are getting some garden furniture for out there. So
then people can stand on it.
So summer can. No, don't say that. You made me. Even that makes. But I feel I have a lot of irrational fear around it. Like I get scared at night time. I'll come to me at 3 a.m. or something. I'm sort of thinking about.
You don't sleepwalk.
No, and the door's locked
Sleep
anyway.
Talk?
So, don't think so.
Snore?
Unless it's a really good dream. Of course not.
Grind your teeth?
I probably do snore. Probably, yeah, I do that. But because what I also do is I do drums with my teeth.
Right. The last question.
So I'm doing that, and so I'm wearing them down. But there's nothing cosmetic.
But you're young.
Cosmetic dentists can deal with that.
You're young, and you've got teenage years with 3 kids coming up.
Wonderful.
So what I'd like you to do is the last question is take yourself to the 15-year-old version of yourself today. So you go to your local school that what was your secondary school here?
Rutherford College, West Auckland.
Okay, so you go in there and you sit down over lunch with a 15-year-old tomorrow.
Yeah.
And she says to you, Simon, what would be your advice to me? What would you say?
I think I'd be more. I'd be encouraging with some pretty basic stuff for a young kid who thought he had all the answers about being respectful, listening more to your elders, and all that kind of sort of basic stuff. I think that probably would have stood me in good stead for the next decade, right? I had to learn a few hard lessons at law firms and so on around some of that. But I think more fundamentally, the thing I've always said, and we talked about this a bit, and I said, I'm possibly too much of a risk taker. I'm not, and I wouldn't want anyone to think I'm a cowboy, but I do think if you want an interesting, exciting life, of course in a calculated way, in a thoughtful way, but I think we should embrace risk more. The best things I've done in my life have always been ones where my mum or dad or both of them or others have said, this is ridiculous, Simon, why are you doing this? This is stupid, but they've been life-defining, important moments, even when they haven't gone entirely right. I wouldn't sort of trade them for quids. And so that's going to Oxford University, where it cost a small mortgage. I could have bought a house, but I wanted to go. I met my lovely wife. It was, it's just a fantastic sort of year. Moving to Tauranga from Auckland originally because I wanted to be a Crown prosecutor. I was losing money. I went from X salary to sort of X minus Y.
Can I ask though? So
politics.
Your parents would guide you not to do it because it was crazy, but did you? I was pointing the finger. Get in trouble for that. Did you think it was crazy?
No, I'd counted the cost. I understood the pros and the cons. I knew that if it went wrong, what that would look like. And I think, obviously, and maybe your parents were a bit the same, just it's a generational thing. I mean, I'm not saying they were. Are they baby boomers? I'd say they're probably. So they're security obsessed at a level, very, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it's a materialistic world in which they live, and so they're perhaps not seeing the wider picture. But they've always been worried, well, you're losing X, Y, and Z if you move to Tauranga from the law firm you're in. You're losing X, Y, and Z if you go to Oxford University. You're losing X, Y, and Z if you go into politics. But those things, and funnily enough, I mean, the irony with my mum, poor old mum, sorry mum, but didn't want me to get into politics, then thought I was mad to leave it, right? But these sort of things, as long as you're working through them and it's not just kind of oh, I wake up today, I'm just going to do that, right? But you've counted the cost. They've always been the most rewarding decisions. So I would
Courage.
sort of courage, embrace risk. I mean, I know it starts sounding a bit twee, but go for it.
Courage, and the other word I've got in my mind is conviction. It's very interesting. It's not risk, right? It's conviction for what you believe in. And I go back to the 15-year-old female, to have the courage to go try stuff, do stuff. If this makes you afraid, maybe you need to go and do that.
Yeah.
That's a pretty special life.
Doesn't mean leaning over the glass balcony or anything like that, but it does mean, a conviction is, I think you're onto something with that. I think that's right. It's like, and then, if you've counted the cost and you've had the conviction of it, even if it goes wrong, and I always had this kind of view in politics, in the end, you sleep well with yourself. You'll and you look back, and oftentimes, I mean, at a level, I sound like I'm just this little guy in this little country, but in the end, often the positions I took around, for example, COVID, a variety of other things, in the end, history judges you more kindly, providing you're rational and not too silly. But if you've gone with your conviction where you thought things should be.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for coming on Manaaki. Thank you for giving your time, and wishing you the best for the chamber and all those other things, because the roles that people like you play are very important in synthesising what's actually happening on the street to make a difference for the people on the street. And I know you're very passionate about New Zealand. I know you're very passionate about your family, and I think that it's great to have you in Auckland and contributing in a different way to New Zealand's future. So thank you very much. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thanks so much, so did I.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully we won't have to cut too much. You never know.
Sorry, it's a little long-winded there, but you cut what you like.
No, we'll I'm sure the team will do it. So hey, everyone, that's us today. Thank you very much to Simon Bridges. If you want to look at this, go onto YouTube, find Manaaki, or come to manaaki.io to our platform. Thanks very much, and have a great rest of the day.